The Viruk had observed many species across the stars, from creatures that could survive in the crushing depths of gas giants to civilizations that lived on frozen moons where temperatures would shatter steel. But never had they encountered anything as bizarre as the humans of Sol 3. Their research station, hidden in the dark reaches of space, had been silently monitoring Earth for decades, gathering information about its inhabitants. At first, humans had seemed unremarkable, small, fragile creatures bound to a single planet, limited by their own biological weaknesses. Compared to the towering strength of the Viruk, who had evolved in the brutal conditions of the high-radiation planet Xanthos Prime, humans should have been insignificant. But then, the scientists noticed something deeply unsettling. They first detected the anomaly during a routine planetary scan. The radiation levels on the surface of Sol 3 were dangerous by galactic standards, especially near its equator, where its yellow star burned fiercely, sending waves of lethal energy toward the ground. Any species exposed to such radiation should have taken extreme precautions, remaining underground or developing sophisticated shielding technologies. And yet, the humans did something incomprehensible. They willingly exposed themselves to the deadly light. At first, the Viruk scientists assumed it was a mistake. Perhaps the humans did not understand the consequences, or maybe their technology was more advanced than it appeared, creating invisible shielding. But as they continued watching, they saw something even more horrifying. Humans not only stood under the sun, but laid down in direct exposure, seemingly enjoying the process. Entire groups gathered on sandy shores, stretching their limbs, closing their eyes, and allowing the radiation to touch every inch of their exposed skin. They appeared to be relaxing. Dr. Zorlan, the lead xenobiologist, struggled to comprehend the madness unfolding before his many eyes. He adjusted the scanners, confirming the data again and again, but the readings remained the same. The humans were absorbing dangerous radiation, yet their bodies were not breaking down. Instead, they seemed to thrive. Even stranger, they applied chemical substances to their skin, as if enhancing the effect. Some became visibly darker over time, as if their bodies were adapting at an unnatural speed. The Viruk had seen species mutate over millennia, but this was happening in mere weeks. How is this possible? One researcher muttered, her voice trembling. Are they immune to stellar radiation? Zorlan did not have an answer. His kind had always feared the wrath of stars, knowing that prolonged exposure would destroy their cells, corrupt their DNA, and lead to agonizing death. It was why their species had evolved thick, reflective exoskeletons, shielding them from even the mildest cosmic rays. To them, a star was an enemy, a force of nature that had to be respected and feared. But humans? Humans were treating their own star as a companion. The recordings showed them smiling, laughing, playing under the relentless blaze. Even as the temperature soared, even as the radiation intensified, they remained there, defying every law of survival. Some deliberately spent hours under the sun, as if testing their limits. Some covered their eyes with simple glass and still remained fearless. They weren't just enduring it, they were enjoying it. A growing sense of unease spread among the researchers. If humans could withstand the fury of their own star, what else could they survive? The Viruk had long considered themselves superior to most known species, but now, for the first time, they felt a sliver of doubt. Were these creatures truly fragile? Or were they something far more terrifying, something that adapted so quickly that even the most hostile environments would never stop them? Zorlan exhaled slowly, staring at the planet below. The reports they had gathered would shake the foundations of the Galactic Council. Humanity was not the weak, temporary species they had once believed. If they could conquer the light of a star with nothing but their own flesh, then perhaps, one day, there would be nothing in the universe that could stand against them. And that thought, more than anything, sent a shiver through his exoskeleton. Dr. Zorlan stood in the dimly lit control room of the Viruk research station, staring at the holographic projections of human activity on Earth. The images showed humans basking under the golden rays of their sun, their skin darkening, their bodies absorbing radiation that should have been lethal. It defied every law of biology that the Viruk had studied for centuries. No known species could endure prolonged exposure to direct stellar radiation without suffering cellular decay, genetic corruption, or outright death. And yet, here were humans not only surviving but thriving under conditions that would kill even the hardiest of Vuric warriors. The more they observed, the less sense it made. This was not natural. This was not possible. And yet, it was happening. Zorlin turned to his team of scientists, his voice measured but filled with unease. "Run the genetic scans again," he ordered. "I want every strand of human DNA analyzed. I want to know what makes them immune to radiation." The researchers worked in silence, their elongated fingers dancing over the glowing consoles. Massive data streams filled the air as scanners combed through the genetic sequences of human test subjects. The results came in waves, each one more baffling than the last. Humans were not immune in the way the Vuric had initially assumed. Their bodies did not reject or resist the sun's radiation. Instead, they adapted to it rapidly, efficiently, and without suffering harm. Their cells responded to radiation by strengthening rather than breaking down, actively repairing damage before it could spread. The pigmentation in their skin darkened, forming a natural shield against increased exposure, and their DNA showed an uncanny ability to mutate without negative consequences. "This is impossible," one scientist murmured. "They should be suffering, but they are not." The data was undeniable, but it only raised more terrifying questions. If humans could adapt this easily to stellar radiation, what else were they capable of? Were they limited to this one adaptation, or was this merely one example of their terrifying resilience? If they could endure what the Vuric considered lethal, what would stop them from surviving in even harsher conditions? Zorlin knew they needed further tests. They had to confirm the uniqueness of this phenomenon. Perhaps humans were not special. Perhaps, given the right conditions, any species could develop such resistance. It was a desperate hope, one that shattered within hours. The scientists conducted controlled experiments using creatures from various high-radiation environments across the galaxy. They exposed them to simulated solar conditions, measuring their ability to endure radiation similar to that of Earth's sun. One by one, the results came in. Every test subject perished. No species, no matter how durable, showed even a fraction of the resistance that humans display. Their cells withered, their DNA broke down, and their bodies succumbed within moments. Even when they attempted to artificially modify genetic structures to mimic human DNA, the results were catastrophic. The alterations did not lead to adaptation, they led to destruction. The synthetic structures collapsed, unable to replicate the human ability to adjust so effortlessly. Zorlin's unease grew. "This is not just evolution," he muttered. "This is something far beyond that. Humans are not merely surviving, they are becoming stronger through exposure." The implications were staggering. Stars were among the most destructive forces in the universe, feared and respected by every advanced civilization. No one defied a star's wrath. No one treated radiation as a minor inconvenience. No one except humans. If they could withstand the power of a sun, what else could they endure? Could they survive on planets with extreme heat, brutal solar winds, or toxic atmospheres? Would they one day walk unprotected across the surfaces of worlds that other species would never dare to set foot upon? The thought sent ripples of fear through the research team. If humans were capable of such rapid adaptation, their potential for expansion across the galaxy was limitless. They would spread to places other species could never colonize. They would endure where others would perish. They would become an unstoppable force, carving a path through the stars while others withered in their wake. The Galactic Council had always viewed humans as fragile, temporary beings, limited by their biological weakness. But the Vuric now knew the truth. Humans were not weak. They were something far more dangerous. Zorlin's voice was quiet but firm as he turned to his team. "We need to report this immediately. The galaxy must be warned." But even as he spoke the words, he knew it was already too late. Humanity had already begun its march toward the stars, and nothing, not even the power of the cosmos, would stand in their way. Dr. Zorlon stood in the heart of the Vuric research station, his many eyes fixed on the glowing data streams before him. The revelation that humans could endure solar radiation had shaken him, but the council demanded more than observations, they demanded proof. He had spent cycles analyzing human biology, running simulations, and reviewing every recorded instance of their bizarre ability to survive under conditions that should have killed them. But the findings were too outrageous to be accepted without direct testing. The council would never believe that humans, a species so fragile by galactic standards, had evolved an unnatural resilience against one of the most destructive forces in the universe. There was only one way to confirm the truth, an experiment unlike any they had attempted before. If humans were truly unique, if their ability to withstand radiation was more than a coincidence, then the results of this test would change everything. The laboratory was silent as the experiment began. The first phase was simple. They would expose various life forms to controlled levels of radiation, measuring their tolerance. The researchers had selected creatures from across the galaxy, some from planets bathed in high-energy gamma bursts, others from the depths of gas giants where atmospheric pressure crushed weaker beings instantly. Each of these species had evolved in extreme conditions, their bodies adapted to withstand brutal environments. And yet, one by one, they failed. The radiation tore through their cells, breaking apart their genetic structures, causing rapid decay and inevitable death. Even the hardiest among them, creatures considered nearly indestructible by their native worlds, succumbed within minutes. The results were predictable, yet unsettling. Then came the second phase. Using the most advanced genetic engineering available, the Viroak attempted to replicate human DNA sequences in artificial cells. If the secret to their resilience lay within their genetics, then it should be possible to recreate the effect in a controlled environment. They carefully constructed strands of synthetic human DNA, embedding them into cellular structures designed to mimic biological functions. The results were catastrophic. The artificial cells did not adapt to radiation as human cells did. Instead, they self-destructed almost instantly, unable to maintain their integrity. It was as if the very nature of human biology resisted being copied, defying even the most sophisticated scientific manipulation. Zorlan's unease deepened. This was not normal evolution. This was something else. Something unnatural. The final test was the most dangerous. If humans could survive solar radiation with ease, then it was time to push the limits. The researchers obtained a human test subject, one unaware of the grand experiment unfolding in the depths of space. The Varuk had long studied humans from a distance, but never before had they directly observed one under laboratory conditions. The subject, a civilian captured from an unremarkable Earth city, was placed within a controlled chamber, a simulated environment designed to replicate conditions found on planets far harsher than Earth. The radiation levels inside the chamber were increased slowly, rising beyond what any known species could endure. The human's heartbeat remained steady. His breathing remained normal. He showed no signs of distress. The researchers watched in horrified fascination as his body adjusted in real time. His skin darkened, his metabolism shifted, his cells worked tirelessly to repair microscopic damage before it could accumulate. He was not just enduring the radiation, he was adapting to it, reshaping himself to survive. It was happening too quickly, too efficiently. Zorlan realized the truth at that moment. This was not mere survival. This was something far more terrifying. Humans did not resist their environment. They became their environment. A deep silence fell over the laboratory as the data confirmed what they already feared. There was no limit to what humans could endure. If exposed to enough time and pressure, they would evolve into whatever was necessary to survive. The implications were terrifying. The galaxy had always viewed humanity as weak, but they had misunderstood. It was not their strength that made them dangerous. It was their ability to change. While other species reached evolutionary dead ends, humans had no such barrier. Given enough time, they could adapt to anything. The scorching heat of dying stars, the crushing gravity of supermassive worlds, the toxic atmospheres of planets that no life should endure. There was nothing in the universe that could stop them, because they would always become what was needed to survive. Zorlan stepped away from the console, his mind reeling. The experiment had changed everything. Humanity was not just another species struggling to carve a place among the stars. They were something else entirely. Something that could spread, evolve, and thrive where others perished. He knew, with a certainty that sent fear through his very core, that the galaxy would never be the same. And worst of all, there was no way to stop them. Zorlin had never felt fear before. As a scientist of the Vuruk, his existence revolved around logic, data, and the cold precision of science. But now, standing in the control room of the research station, watching the reports flood in, he understood what fear truly was. It was not an abstract concept. It was not a hypothetical scenario. It was real, and it was spreading. The experiment had confirmed their worst suspicions. Humans were not just another species. They were not bound by the same limitations that governed the rest of the galaxy. They were something far more terrifying. And now, this knowledge was beginning to ripple outward, reaching the ears of those who had never given Earth a second thought. The Vuruk High Council had been the first to receive the report, but their reaction had been anything but expected. At first, they dismissed the findings. They believed it to be an error, a flaw in the experiment, a mistake in the data. But when the evidence became undeniable, when the footage was played before them showing a human surviving radiation levels that would have shattered any other life form, they fell silent. Some refused to accept it. Others saw the horrifying truth. If humans could adapt to radiation, then what else could they survive? If they could change so effortlessly, then what was stopping them from thriving in the most hostile parts of the galaxy? The implications sent waves of unease through the council. And when fear took root in the minds of leaders, it did not stay contained for long. Soon, the news spread beyond the Vuruk homeworld, reaching distant civilizations that had long ignored humanity's existence. The beings of the galactic core, the ancient empires that had watched the rise and fall of countless species, suddenly found themselves facing a new kind of uncertainty. The humans had been seen as insignificant before, primitive creatures with limited technology, confined to a single world. But now, that image was shattering. The very thing that made them seem weak had turned out to be their greatest weapon. They did not resist death. They adapted to avoid it, and if they were given enough time, they would become unstoppable. Across the stars, whispers of fear turned into open discussions. In the halls of power, leaders debated whether humanity should be stopped before it was too late. Should they be contained? Should they be studied further? Or should they be eliminated while they were still vulnerable? The idea of preemptive action began to spread. Some species, those who had always feared losing control of the galaxy, started calling for war. If humans were left unchecked, if they were allowed to expand beyond their homeworld, they could become something no one could challenge. The warnings were clear: once they set foot beyond their solar system, nothing would be able to stop them. But fear was a dangerous thing. It was unpredictable. It spread faster than truth, faster than reason, and in its wake, it left chaos. The more civilizations learned about humanity's ability to survive, the more their paranoia grew. The alliances of the galactic powers began to fracture. Some believed they should make contact with humanity, attempt to negotiate and understand them before making rash decisions. Others wanted immediate action, arguing that the humans' potential was too dangerous to be ignored. And then there were those who simply watched from the shadows, waiting to see what the humans would do next. Back on the Vuruk research station, Zorlan knew that no matter what decisions were made, it was already too late. The humans were still unaware of the attention they had drawn, still oblivious to the fear their existence had ignited. But they would not remain unaware for long. The galaxy was reacting to them, and soon humanity would notice. And when they did, when they realized that they were seen as a threat, they would do what they had always done. They would adapt. They would find a way to survive. And if the rest of the galaxy moved against them, then the humans would do what came naturally to them. They would evolve. And they would win. The galactic leaders had always underestimated humans. To them, Earth was an insignificant world, a primitive place where an undeveloped species struggled with wars, politics, and survival. They were not remarkable in strength, speed, or intelligence. Their technology was outdated, their fleets limited, their influence barely noticeable in the grand scheme of the cosmos. But what the galaxy failed to see, what even the most advanced civilizations refused to acknowledge, was the one thing that made humanity the most dangerous species ever encountered. It was not their weapons. It was not their numbers. It was not even their adaptability. It was something far more terrifying. It was something no other species possessed at such an extreme level: their ability to defy the impossible. Zorlin had studied countless civilizations in his lifetime. He had witnessed species rise and fall, empires crumble, and great minds discover the secrets of the universe. But nothing had prepared him for what he now saw in humans. Logic dictated that species followed patterns, that they evolved in predictable ways, that they advanced according to natural laws. But humans did not follow those rules. They were chaotic, unpredictable, and somehow, against all odds, they always found a way. When faced with destruction, they survived. When forced into impossible situations, they thrived. When given no options, they created new ones. No matter how dire their circumstances, they refused to accept defeat. It was evident in their history. Time and time again, they had stood at the edge of extinction, only to rise stronger than before. Natural disasters, global wars, resource crises, any of these should have wiped them out, but instead they became more resilient. They were not the most powerful, yet they had conquered their world. They were not the fastest, yet they had reached the stars. They were not the strongest, yet they had learned to break the very limits of their existence. No matter how much the universe threw at them, they adapted. They endured. And most terrifying of all, they never stopped pushing forward. The Council had long debated the nature of human resilience, searching for a scientific explanation. But how could science explain something so illogical? No formula could define their ability to turn weakness into strength. No equation could measure their sheer will to survive. It was not evolution alone. It was something deeper. It was something unseen, something that could not be measured in genetics or biology. It was in their minds, in their refusal to accept reality as it was. Even now, as the galaxy began to fear them, as whispers of preemptive strikes and containment plans spread among the great civilizations, the humans remained oblivious. They did not know that countless eyes were watching them. They did not realize that the most powerful beings in the cosmos were afraid. But fear had never stopped them before. If war came, humanity would fight. If the stars turned against them, they would find a way to survive. It was what they had always done. It was their unseen power, the thing that separated them from every other species. Zorlin had once believed the universe was ruled by laws, by logic, by order. But now, watching the humans, he saw the truth. The universe did not belong to the strongest, the smartest, or the most advanced. It belonged to those who refused to surrender. And no species in history had ever refused more than humanity.